Okay, yeah, so we'll just give it a few minutes and then I'll share my screen. And so yeah, what we're gonna be mainly doing is first we're going to be setting up an EC2 instance, which I've had a tutorial before in the past, but this will just be a quick refresher. But then what we're gonna do is with that instance, we're going to create our own image that we can pull from. So like an image is almost like an instance template that then we can use to create more instances from. And then doing that, we can use a script, like just a bash script, to be able to spin up as many instances as we can. And also when we run those instances, we can programmatically do things like install Docker. What we're doing actually is we're going to be starting the Docker image or starting the Docker container on each running instance that we spin up. And yeah, you can think about how you can use this. I know I've seen some documentation on how to use this for machine learning because AWS now has these things called spot instances where you can kind of set the price you want to pay per instance hour, and as long as it's below that, it will run your your code and your instances. And the problem with that though is they might spin down at any time, so you have to be very mindful of setting checkpoints and things. I linked to something at the end, so we'll kind of talk to that at the end, but I just want you to think about where this tutorial can be used. Yeah, right now in this tutorial, I'm going to be using Glenn's Flask app to be able to spin up multiple instances with one command. And yeah, I think we can just get going. So I'm going to share my screen. Okay, everyone can see my screen, right? Great.
Yep, yep.
So the first thing is you have to make an AWS account. Oh, Sarush, were you able to make that AWS account? Or did they still need a credit card?
So yeah, the normal AWS account needs a credit card, but I created the AWS Educate account without a credit card and with my institution email address.
Oh,
but
cool.
It has nothing. Yeah, but it has nothing to to offer. Like it's just a. I mean, I don't see anything on my panel. It just helps you to create career pathways, something like that. It doesn't.
So when you do you have a thing up here that says services?
No, I don't.
No. Oh, interesting. And are you're in the console and you don't see anything like any of these services?
So the URL is different. It isn't console.aws.amazon. Like it is awseducate.com.
So they probably just have like tutorials and things.
Right, yes.
Okay. I thought that was getting you like AWS access to the AWS services. Okay, so you might still have to set up a personal account, but
right,
hopefully
yes.
we'll get you on the Habits Lab sandbox account when it gets made. A little bit later, I'm going to show you roles and permissions, which they're super fine grained, and that's why it takes time, is because there's so many roles and permissions that you can use.
Okay.
But so so follow along if you can. If not, this video will be on YouTube, on our YouTube channel, so you can always go back to it. So the first thing we're going to do is, if you do have access, we're going to go to EC2s, because all of this is going to be using EC2 instances. And the first thing we're going to do is so you can see the terminated instances I have, but if you go to this page, you probably won't see anything. And so what we're going to do is, let me move this, just spin up a new instance. And I know I covered this before, so I'm going to go pretty quick, but I'm going to choose free tier only, which is all the free operating systems you can use. And I'm just going to use Ubuntu Server 18. So when you select that, you can select all the different sizes, and these all come with different prices associated. But we're just going to use the free, the micro, T2 micro, which is free tier eligible. It has 1 CPU and 1 gig of memory, but it's free, so it's nice. They even have a smaller one, which is newer. So what we're going to do is next configure the instance, and this we're just going to keep it default, everything default here. You don't need to change anything. but this is to, if you were spinning up instances from the console here, you could actually spin up multiple instances here. And later we'll talk about the auto scaling group if we have time. So next we're going to add storage. The default, it gives you 8 storage, but for free, you can go up to 30. So why wouldn't we do 30? And okay, so next we're going to add tags. Tags in AWS are useful for tracking your resources. So I'm just going to use study explainability and environment dev. This is just a way, if you're looking for where you're using resources, it's good to get into the practice of using these tags. So next is the security group, which is going to be important because we're serving a Flask app. So we're going to be serving it to the web. We want web ports open. By default, it has the SSH port, port 22 open to the internet, and that's so that you can access the instance. So we also want to add a rule for HTTP. And yeah, so the CIDR block is set here so that anyone on the internet can go to it. You can nail down these permissions if you know the IP's addresses that you want to access, things like that. But if you're just serving a web page, you want it open. And yeah, so you're creating a new security group and you want to name it something that makes sense. I'm just going to call it delete me so I know to delete it later. And let's see, so we have HTTP. Oh, and the other thing too is we're going to just open a custom port. This you don't need, but this is just in case. I know that Glenn's app is running on port 5000. I'm redirecting it to the HTTP port 80, but if you want anything for testing on other ports, you can open another port. And it does give you a warning that you're opening it up to the whole internet. And I think it gives you another warning later. Oh. And just set the CIDR block. Okay, so now, yep, it lets you know again, it's open to the whole world. So you review it, you make sure everything's right, and you launch. So when you hit launch, it will tell you to either choose an existing key pair or make a new key pair. For this example, I have some key pairs here, but I'm going to create a new one. And I'm going to call it delete me 119. And I'm going to download the key pair here. So this is the RSA key, so how you SSH into the machine. So we have the key pair here, and I'm just going to launch the instance. So now it's launching, and if we go back to our instance in the console, you can see it's pending. It's spinning up right now, which takes a little bit of time. But so in that time, what I'm going to do is add the Pem key, the RSA security key to my host machine, so I can SSH into the instance. So what I'm going to do here is just open this, and I'll be deleting this. So yeah, I know this is going to be on YouTube, but I'll delete this later. So what I'm going to do is just copy this, and I'm going to make a new file called, what did I name it? You can actually see what you named it here. So I called the key delete me 119. So I'm just going to make that file delete me 119.pem, and then you're into it. So I'm just going to paste that key, save it, and exit. Now it's also important you have to change the permissions on the Pem key. And for that, you need to use the command chmod 400 and the Pem key. Oh. So now it has the correct permissions to be able to be used to SSH into this machine. So let's see. Now let's check that this machine is running. It's still initializing. So, but even though it's initializing, we can still get the way to connect. For that, we click on the connect button up here. And this gives us the string to SSH in. So uses the command SSH, the Pem key for your identity, and then you're SSHing as the user Ubuntu. And this is the machine we're going into, which we can see here. We can see here is the oh, that's the public DNS. Let's see, is that the same thing? Yeah, it's the same thing. So we use this command. It will ask us if we want to continue connecting and establish the security credentials. We say yes. It adds it, and now we're in the machine. So you can see it tells us a little bit about the machine. Okay. So now once in the machine, what we're doing is we're running Glenn's Flask app, which is Dockerized. So right now this is a bare bones Ubuntu machine. So we need to think about what we need on this machine to run the Docker. So that means we need Docker. We need what we've been doing is I've been setting up swap memory because sometimes the Flask app crashes due to low memory. So we're going to do that. And then we need to clone the repository. So what I'm going to do here is I'm going to just set up a script to install Docker first. So nano install docker.sh. Okay. Oh, and if you have any questions, you can just let me know. And I have in that thing I shared, I have the bash script for running for installing Docker. So we're going to write exit, and we're going to just chmod with executable. Okay, so now we can run this install Docker, which I'm going to do. Okay, and you can see it's installing Docker. And we're going to wait for it to install. Oh, and while I'm waiting for it to install, we're just going to check here. So we did open port 80. And so if we go to this address, we probably won't see anything. Yeah, we won't see anything. It'll just tell us that it can't connect. But the port is open. Okay, oh, and it still says initializing. Sometimes you just have to refresh this, yeah. And so now you can see it's running. It passes all the status checks. Okay, so now Docker's installed. Next, we're going to just run the command to set up the swap memory, which I'm just going to do another script because it's easier. Install swap.sh. I'm going to copy this. Okay. And I'm going to chmod executable. Okay, then install it. Okay, I think that worked. Let's see. What's the command for checking if swap? Oh, swap show. Sudo swap. Yeah, okay, so that worked. Okay, so now we have the swap memory. We have Docker installed. What's the next thing we need? So we need to clone the repository. We're going to use Glenn's Flask app for that. So what we're going to do is grab, clone his repository here. So git clone. Okay. And so I'm going to clone it. Now, this is important. I have to type in my ID and password. And it should clone. It does. Okay, so now we have Docker set up. Well, let's make sure we have Docker. What is Docker V? Yeah. Okay, so Docker is installed. We have the swap memory set up, and now we have his repository. So next we need to just build the image, which we use with, let's see, the build command, sudo docker build tag explain, and oh, this actually won't work because we have to cd into the where the Docker file is. Is it here? No, it's under Flask. Yeah, so here's where the Docker file is. So now we can sudo build the image. And we have to use sudo because remember, we're the Ubuntu user. We're not root right now. So yep, we should be able to build it. Yep. Okay, so now it's building. And yeah, I know I'm going a little fast, but let me know if you have any questions. Yeah, so this is all showing how to manually do the process. A little bit later, we'll show you how much easier it can get. Yeah, there's a lot of moving parts in this part of the tutorial, but it will get much simpler later. Okay, so yep, it's building the Flask image now. And everyone should have access to Glenn's GitHub. It's yeah, if you're on the Habits Lab explain random forest, if you do want to try to clone. Yeah, if you're in Habits Lab, you have access to it if you want to go through this tutorial. And yeah, the Docker file, which allows us to build, is under the explain random forest Flask. Okay, so that built successfully. So now the only thing left is to run. So for that, what we want to do is just Docker sudo Docker run. We set the ports, which we want it to run on port 80 of this machine, and we want to run it from port 5000. And that here, I'll actually bring up, that's in the Docker file. The Docker file here. You can see we're exposing port 5000 from the Docker image. And the way Docker run is you set the ports for the host computer, which is this Ubuntu machine, and where the exposed port on the Docker is, which is 5000. Okay, and then the name of the image we want to run the container, which is explain. Okay, so now we're just running. So let's see. Okay, so it says the Flask says it's running. So we're gonna go back here. And so we click on the public DNS. So that's the IP4. If we click open, we'll see what happens. So I'm gonna not wait for it. It's actually not going to work because we're running it on port 80. And this link, if we click copy link address and we put it in a new tab and paste it, it actually does, it runs the HTTPS protocol, which is port 443. So yeah, that's a common thing. It took me, it never worked, and it took me a while to realize that, because if you click the default way to open this, it will do HTTPS. But if you remove the S, now we got it. It works. Yeah, the other thing is if you try to, here, we're just gonna test it. So I'm just gonna end this. And we can actually check now. Here, we'll refresh this. So we stopped the Docker because with that command, we didn't run it detached. So it only will run if this thread stays open. So here, and we can test that with sudo docker ps. See, yeah, nothing's running right now. So what I'm going to do here is I'm going to run another port. So 443 and 5000. Oh, I need the P command for opening the other port. Explain, and I'm also going to run it detached, which is the D flag. So now, if I run that, it should work. Yep, and we can check it with sudo docker ps. Yep, so we have a Docker running on these two ports, and we can see it came up here because we're on the HTTP. What I'm going to do is it won't work on port the HTTPS port. If I didn't run it detached, you would see it doesn't have the right certification for SSL. So you do have to make sure when you're running this, if you don't install the SSL certificate or do some other things to get that HTTPS, you have to run it on just the HTTP. Does that make sense for everyone? Okay. So that's the first part of the tutorial. We got our image up and running, accessible to the web. We're going to run it just to make sure it works, because sometimes it just comes up. Okay, great. So it does work. So now we see here we have one image. We're going to name it just so I can find this image later. We're going to call it explain1. Okay, so now what I'm going to do, hold on, let me just make sure I've got my notes. Okay. So next what I'm going to do is create an image out of this instance, which AWS makes really easy. If you just right click this and go to image and templates, you can click create image. And for this, you can just name it what you want, which I'm going to call explain demo 118. So I know to delete it, you can describe it, explainability, exploitability. Let's just call it explain study. I'm not the best at spelling. And then this is all the other things. So this sets up the storage that we had attached to it. You can add the tags too, but for brevity, I'm not going to. And let me just make sure I called it explain 118, but that's wrong because it's the 19th. And I'm going to create image. Okay, so now it should be under images AMIs, which I probably have a few. Yeah, I've been testing this. So it's this one that it's still pending because it's still creating the image. When you click on this, the main thing you want here is the AMI ID, which is right here. You want to make note of that for later. But this tells you a lot about the image. It gives you the owner. Another thing we can do, Glenn, is what you can do with these images is you can make them public. So you can share the image, which I'm not actually sure how I do it, but I know it's possible. Spot request. Yeah, I know it's possible to share this image. Like Glenn, if you have an owner ID, I can put that owner ID in here somewhere and just share this image, this exact image that I have with you. Okay, so now we're going to be spinning up this image.
So I can get it on like my AWS account.
Yes, yeah. What you can do is, yeah, once I know it's possible. Thing with AWS, which I've complained about a lot, is they changed their their UI a lot.
Interface.
Yeah. So, but I know it's possible. Yeah, because yeah. Let me
Also,
just right click it.
where did you go to create the image?
Oh, so under instances, when you have the running instance,
right.
If you right click it, you get these options, and
okay.
you go to image and templates.
Oh, okay, got it.
Yeah, so we did create an image. You can also create a template for running it, which is kind of what we'll be doing later with the CLI, but the CLI makes it a little bit easier.
Okay.
But yes, so that's image and templates, create image, and that's what brings you up to all the options where you name it.
Right. Okay.
Okay. So while that's spinning up, the next thing we're going to do is get you into your CLI. So I have the AWS CLI already installed here, but in my notes, I provided this link for how to install the AWS CLI. What's pretty awesome is you can install it on your Docker image, so you can use the AWS CLI in your Docker instance that you're running on AWS, which kind of gets into what's that movie called where he goes into dreams and then he goes into other dreams? Inception. It kind of gets into an AWS Inception type thing. But so I just installed it on my Linux, which is here, and you can use this. It's pretty simple to install. So yeah, once you have the AWS CLI installed, if you type AWS, you'll see it works. It gives you help commands. I didn't do anything with the AWS. The other thing I linked here, which is super useful, is the documentation page, which I'm going to keep up. Which I'm going to keep up here because I'm going to be looking at a few of these. But before we get into that, what you need to do with your AWS CLI, if you do have it installed, is authenticate yourself, which is the AWS Configure command. Okay, so what you have to do is provide your access key. How do you get that? So this is for you if you're the root user of your AWS account. This is something where when we have a sandbox account, it will probably be managed by NUIT or somebody else. But so for this account, I am the root user, and I have AIM access, which you would go into services, or IAM, yeah, which is the identity management. So once you're in IAM, the preferred method of accessing things via the CLI is to make a new user with specified permissions. So that's what we're going to do. So once you are in the IAM, you're going to add a new user. I have one here, but I'm going to create another one for the tutorial. So I'm going to call it delete me. You should call it like your name CLI or something like that, something so that you know what the user is doing. And so I'm going to call it 119. And what we want for this account, this user account, is to have programmatic access. So that's what we need for the AWS configure here. So next we go to permissions. So what you have to do with this user is provide a permission group. I'm not going to use power user, which is pretty much gives them all the permissions. What I'm going to do is create a new group, and I'm going to call it EC2 demo 119. But again, you're going to want to call it something that makes sense to you. And we're going to give it, so this is why it takes so long for like our sandbox account to get created. There are a lot of permissions that go into the AWS. They are very fine grain, and here we can check. So we'll just search EC2. These are all EC2 permissions that we can go with. For our purposes for this demo, we're just going to grant EC2 full access, which you can actually look in here and see what it actually does in the JSON. Which pretty much each of these is a permission that it allows, CloudWatch auto scaling. And if you wanted to get more into it, you could look up what each of these permissions is and even customize your own JSON for this. But so we're just going to check that, EC2 full access, and that's really all we need. So next we're going to create group. Okay, so now we created the group and we're still in our add user phase. So next we can add tags. I'm not going to add tags to this, but you can. It's good practice too. But if you're trying to do a quick demo, it doesn't really make sense. So now you can see the summary, the name of it. It has programmatic access, and it is part of the EC2 demo group with the the EC2 permissions we made. And we're going to create the user. Okay, now this is what you wanted. This is what you need for the AWS configure is your access key here, which I'm actually going to use this. Oops. So AWS configure. So when you probably see nothing here, I have something here because this is what I have set before. So I'm going to add the new key. And now show access key here. I can show this once, but once I leave this page, I can't access it again. So it is good to download the CSV if you plan to use it again. And the CSV just has both of these. And I will be deleting this, but that just lets you know that it's saved so that you can get into it later if you need to. So I'm going to add the secret key here. Okay, next is default region. which if this is your first time setting up the AWS CLI, it's not set. I have mine set to US East 1, but you can look up the AWS regions here. So yeah, you can see which one is closest to you. There's probably even a service that looks up and lets you know which one is closest to you. I realized I actually hard coded in one of my scripts later, US East 1, that yeah, I'll let you know, you can change it to wherever your default region is. So I'm gonna keep it US East 1. And next is output format. This is what the output from the AWS CLI commands will show. I have it set to text, which is useful if you want to use bash commands like sed and awk to like do things with the output. You can also use JSON. Yeah, just for my scripts, I have it set to text. It's really a personal preference and just how you plan on using the output. Okay, so now your AWS CLI is set. Let's see. Oh, there's one more thing, which I have it posted in the notes, is the output actually like when you do something in AWS and the output is in its own page, so it's not shown inline in your terminal, you can change the settings to turn that off, which is useful again for scripts running where you want to do something with the output. Yeah, so this is in there, but it's the pager for AWS. It's in the notes. Just be aware if things aren't working the way they're supposed to, this might be the reason why. It didn't used to do this, so when I was setting up this tutorial, it really threw me, but Stack Overflow to the rescue. Okay, so you should have the AWS CLI set up now for your for your terminal. So let's go back here. We have one instance still running. So what we're gonna do is we're gonna actually just test our CLI. So let's see, these are the command references for the AWS CLI. And what do we wanna do? We wanna check the service for EC2, which is here. And then let's see, there's a whole lot of commands, but if we wanna see that instance running, we probably want to describe, and let's see if there's a describe instances. Okay, so here's describe instances. We can see an example. And yeah, let's just try this command. Okay, and this gives us a lot of information about that running instance. So actually it gives us information about all of the instances we have, which you can see this instance is terminated. It's a little bit hard to read, which is, I use the text. Actually here, I'll show you. So if I go back to the AWS configure and change this from text to JSON, and now run that command again, you can see the JSON, which is a little bit easier to read in this way. We'll go up to the top. So reservation, so we have one instance, which has this image ID, and let's see, it's not monitoring, so you can see it's actually terminated. And if we go back to our instance, if we go not state running, we can see the terminated instance, and it looks like ends in FC. It's this first one is the one we're looking at there. If you keep going down, you can nail down what you want using this. Like if you just wanted IDs, which we do later in the script, but that's just a way to test that your CLI is running. So I'm gonna change this back to text, just because that's what's needed for my scripts. Okay, let me go back, where am I? Okay, so we already made, okay. So next, say what we wanted to do is instead of what we set up in the beginning of this tutorial, say we wanted to run a whole lot.
Tim, we can't hear you. I don't know. Hello?
Yeah, I can't hear Tim as
You
well.
can't, okay. Tim, I don't think he can hear us either. Tim,
He probably does not pay attention to the chats as well. Maybe it's slacking.
yeah. Is he seeing? Tim? Okay, sorry. No.
Wait, am I muted?
Yeah, we got you now.
Oh,
Yeah.
okay. Okay. How long was I muted for?
Just, I think, a couple of minutes, like 1 or 2 minutes.
Oh, okay. Thanks, Boyang. Okay. So sorry about that. So yeah, what I was saying is what we want to do is try, and you can talk if I'm muted.
Oh yeah,
Let
we
me know.
did. I
Oh,
think,
really?
yeah.
Oh,
It
did it
got,
I wonder if it was Zoom muted like everyone, or
oh,
maybe it was my headset actually. Let me plug in my headset just in case. Okay. So what we want to do here is we want to spin up a whole lot of those instances from the CLI. So this command, the EC2 run instances, lets us so at least this command lets us run one single instance. What we want to do is see if there's a parameter where we can specify how many instances we want to run. So if we go up here, we can see, is there anything here that says the number of instances?
this is part of the load balancing thing, right? To
So
have
this
multiple instances.
is not yet, but it will come soon.
Okay.
Yeah, so there should be, so count tells us how many. So what this is actually doing is this is spinning up individual instances. This doesn't put them behind a load balancer yet. But it looks like I'm running out of time, so I might get to that soon. So yeah, so this command run instances will run here. We're gonna, so I brought up, this one. I brought up this so I could save the command. So we want run instances. We set the image ID, which if we go back to us, we can look at this and we can see the image ID, which is here. So this is just to run an instance like this base instance. This won't have any of the same stuff that this instance has running on it, but that's why we made the image. So if you go to your AMI image, the one I made today was right here, 119. So we're actually going to use this image ID. Okay, and we want T2 micro, and the other command we wanted was count. So count, let's spin up 2, and the key pair name that we had on the instance, let's double check that, was delete me 119. So we'll change that. Okay, so now when we run this command from the CLI, it should spin up 2 new instances. Yep. And so yeah, it says they're pending. If this gives us the output in line here, that just lets us know, it gives us a whole lot of information, like what their instance ID will be. But here, if we refresh this, we can see, we'll stop running. So we can see 2 new instances are pending now. And these will we'll enter into these. These will have the same thing as this instance we had created the image for running on it. So let's.
Would this have the Docker and the
It
stuff
will.
since you took it from the image?
It will, but it will not be running the Docker, which is why, which is why we need to do something else to it. So here, I'm just gonna connect to this one to show you. Oops, nope. This is what I need. Also be aware sometimes when you use this connect, it says root here, but this should always be Ubuntu.
Okay.
I think it says that, somewhere. Yeah, it says it right under it. So if you change this to Ubuntu, you want to connect. And yep, now we're in it. So if we ls, we see everything's in there. And this is the new one we just created. But if we sudo docker ps, nothing's running. The Docker is not running. This is where we need another parameter here called user data, which if we search for this, user data so what user data is you provided a script that will run once the instance starts. So, and I provided a sample script that here, actually, I believe it's here. Yeah, so I made a script here and called it install explain. So if I just nano that, you can see, oh, wait, that's not it. Install explain. So we can see the script we're going to start on the instance is just, so I'm logging something just to see if it doesn't start what happened. And I'm also doing that Docker run. So that's the script I'm providing. Another thing that's nifty is, so because what we're doing is in the CLI, you can just make a script to do it as well. So that's what I did here with the install script. So what I'm doing here is grabbing here. I'll make this bigger. I don't know if I can make the font bigger in this. But what I'm doing is setting these positional arguments, which the image ID, which we did before, the count, the instance type, the key pair name, and user data. We've all dealt with that. The security group ID is another parameter we can add to the run instances. And that's the security group we set up. The subnet ID is something else that's needed that you would actually find if you go into your security group. Where security group, you can actually, or is it, it might be under instances. Security group, I forgot. Oh, subnet ID, there you go. You can get it off of the running instance. It's just a parameter that sets what subnet this instance is running on. So I'm doing all that. The virtual private cloud ID is something you need for some commands too. So yeah, there's a lot going on in this script, but I did provide this script to you. So you can read more about the individual components of it. But you can see what I'm doing in the script is first, I'm running instances. So this is using that run instance command that we talked about and setting all the positional parameters in here, including the install file, security group. And what I'm doing is I'm outputting the results of this, which is what we saw, into another variable, EC2 IDs. Next, I'm creating a load balancer, which you can read about in the CLI reference. EC2. Oh, actually, it's its own thing. There we go. Electric load balancer V2 is what we're using. And you can see what I'm doing is creating a load balancer and using the parameters as well as taking the output from some of these commands and setting them to their own variables to be used later. A lot of AWS commands have a useful wait parameter, which means it will wait to continue on until this command is finished. So what I'm doing here is I'm waiting for the load balancer to be available, which is necessary if you want to add anything to it. The next thing I'm doing is creating a target group. A target group is what points the load balancer, what is pointed to from the load balancer. So you have the load balancer and behind it are all of these instances. Those instances would be the target group. You can have, say you have 5 instances running, you would put them in a target group that the load balancer points to. And there's probably diagrams on that on load balancer that you can look up on the internet. The next, what I'm doing is getting the ARN number, which is kind of the identifier from the target group. And this is just running a query command from AWS. So another command, describe target groups, getting that name, and then getting the parameters. And then I'm adding, let's go down. I'm adding each instance in a loop to the load balancer. So that's what I'm doing here. And at the end, I'm creating a listener on the load balancer that's opening up port 80. Okay, I know that was quick, but I did provide the script that you could read more about. So let's see it actually working. And what I'm going to do is I actually saved in here the script. Oh, actually, I think it's in my notes page. I know I ran it before. Hold on. I'm just going to go through my history because it's a long command. There we go. So what I'm doing is I'm using the install script. I'm setting the AMI here, which let's just double check we have the right AMI of the one we created today. So
that's the image, right?
Yes. So that's here at the image ID. Which here. So I'm going to copy this and just paste it here. I'm setting 2 instances, setting this the size of it. Oh, here is an old Pem file that I have. Let's just make sure I'm using the right Pem file for this demonstration, which was delete me 119. So the next parameter is the user data, which is the install file, which we can see here. Nano CD. Oh, I'm in the actual. Hold on. Exit. Nano install explain. There we go. So we can see it's just this where you're starting the Docker. Okay, I'm setting the security group, the subnet, and then I'm naming the load balancer and target group. And that's all I'm doing. And if I hit run,
so
okay,
this is creating 2 new instances as well, right? Now?
Yep, which is what it says here. So which is, so what it's doing here is first it's creating the instances. I don't have it saying anything about that, but what we can do is check our console and we can see there's 2 new instances running. And we can actually check what AMI they're using, which is this AMI, which if we look at it, it's the explain demo, which is the one we said. And we'll go back to the console here. Let me put this back on the lower side. So next it's creating the load balancer, which we can check that too here on the left side. Load balancers. Okay, so it's creating the explain LB. It's provisioning it now.
So how many instances are going to be inside the load balancer?
Right now, just the 2.
Just these 2. Okay.
Yeah. So in the script, it sets up, so this count here is how many instances you're spinning up and adding to the load balancer. So you can set that to, 5 or 6 if you want, or 10, 15. I don't know if there's an upper bound. I'm sure there is.
Okay, but it's all it's doing. It's spinning up the free tier T2 micro.
Yeah. Yep, and that's what you set here too, the T2 micro instance. But those instances do have Docker installed. They do have the swap memory too.
Oh, great. Okay.
Yeah, that's something
because it's
too,
an image. Yeah.
Right, because it's that image. If you wanted to use a generic image, you can put all those scripts in this install file instead. And then you wouldn't have to make an image. You could just grab the AMI for, if you go here, instance types.
A generic Ubuntu AMI.
Right. You can grab that AMI when you start the image. So like this explain one.
Right.
This
like
AMI is just a generic.
Just launch it and create an image, and then and put everything from and start everything from the
So
script.
yeah, it was just easier for the demonstration to create that image.
Right.
Yeah, because then you know how to. If you wanted anything more complicated in the image too, you can have that being done. You can do it beforehand and then just save that image. It's also nice.
That makes sense. Yeah.
Yeah, it works for this if you have a complete, like your repo is pretty much complete. What we don't have time for now because that takes a while. Next AWS tutorial, I'm going to show you how to connect your GitHub to an EC2 image so that you can git pull or git clone. Because right then I wouldn't be able to git clone in the script because it needs my password. So what you do, this will just be a taste, but you have to set a key and then put that key in that image, like save that RSA key, and then make sure you save that image that has that RSA key. It also gets complicated because when you run this script, in the user data, it actually runs as root. It doesn't run as your user. So you have to take that into account, that when you run the user data script, you are root, and everything that you make or run will be in root. Okay, so now let's check it so we can see. So it's still creating the load balancer. So we'll see, it is active, the load balancer is active, but I think it's just waiting for it to be available. We'll check, yeah, there's no target group yet. But yeah, so it takes a little bit to provision all the resources and be spun up, but this should work. And yeah, we'll just wait for that. Otherwise, yeah, that's pretty much it for this tutorial. Does anyone have any other questions?
I had one about the load balancer. It's what it basically does is if multiple instances of the app open up in the browser and it's getting too the traffic is too much for one of the instances, then it does it automatically go to the other instance?
Exactly. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. It balances the request load.
Okay.
Yeah. In this tutorial document, I talk about what's up next, which I just talked about pulling GitHub when running instance. Another thing is the auto scaling group, which would be useful for your app, where if an instance crashes for any reason, which we've seen sometimes happens, you can set up auto scaling. So say, for instance, you always want 3 instances running. If it senses through a health check, one instance isn't running, it will spin up another instance automatically. Which is super useful for web apps that you're serving on the web if you want to maintain performance of that web app. The other thing that I want to do more research on before I talk to you guys about is this spot instances, which is what I talked about in the beginning, which is a useful tutorial here, where you spin up spot instances to run machine learning training models. And this talks about it. And this kind of goes through a similar architecture, which we talked about. This uses some S3 on the back end to save your checkpoints and things like that. But yeah, so pretty much everything that we did, you would set up as a spot instance, which kind of runs on demand, not necessarily for you, but on demand that the resources are available. So you set what you want to pay for these resources, which could be, let's go back here and go instance types. Here, let's check the most pricey ones. So which could be something that has, was that 96 CPUs?
I just saw 1000 GB RAM.
Yeah, I thought, wait, hold on, let's go. I thought there were more pricey ones. Hold on, oh, let's refresh. Issue encountered data. AWS doesn't like fetching the data to see the most pricey. There we go. Yeah, 96 CPUs. Yeah, so you can get very pricey, but what you can do is set the amount you would pay per hour. There's also instances that have specialized, GPUs, things like that, which you can provision to then run when you need them to and when it's cheapest for you. And so, yeah, this was an interesting read. I definitely want to try setting this up and can explain more. So this would be a way to do machine learning where if you don't want to run it on the Lambda or have a problem with compute power, this would be a way to do it cheap and pretty efficiently.
S3 is HIPAA compliant, right? So we can store training data there.
Yes, there are things that need to be done. Like it needs to be on its own private cloud, I believe, which Northwestern can provision. But yeah, there are different ways to make it HIPAA compliant. Like just by itself, it isn't necessarily, because you could put data on there and just open it up to the whole internet, and that's not HIPAA compliant. But so as long as you follow the security protocols, it is.
It is, okay.
Yeah. Okay, so it's creating the target group now. Let's see, is the target group created yet? Okay, so now it's adding the instances to the load balancer, and now it should be up and running, which if we go to our load balancer, we can check it and get the description. And this gives us the URL. So here, we'll put it up here. And yep, it's running behind a load balancer now. So we have 2 instances running behind this load balancer that's available at this URL. And here I can even put it in the chat, maybe.
Actually, is there a limit on the number of instances we can spin up for a load balancer in the free tier?
I'm not sure. Here, I mean, we can try it real quick. Yeah, I can spin up. I mean, it might not be necessary, but here we can try spinning up 12. And yeah, so I also made a script that's available to destroy everything, which I'll run right after this.
Okay.
Because it is still free tier, but it can rack up stuff. Yeah, so it's creating all 12 of them.
How do you ensure how do you know for sure it's running on the free tier?
So that's this parameter. Hold on. The M2 micro is the parameter.
Ah, okay.
Because that's the instance type.
Right, and that's on the free tier.
Right. And also the image we're using is on the free tier too. We created that image from the the free tier.
Got it.
Yeah, later we can also get into it too, but you can also check your billing just to make sure.
Okay.
I might rack up 17 cents with what's in there now. So yeah, that's the forecast till the end of the month. So, and that's probably from these, when you create an AMI, it creates a snapshot, which I don't think these are free.
Oh, that's backup.
Right. It's 30 gigs of backup for what it is. So you can delete it.
Yeah.
But by default, I think it creates it. But yeah, just be aware.
Wait.
But yeah, I think. Go ahead.
Yeah, it doesn't. It says 502 bad gateway. Is it because But is it probably because you're creating
Are
new
you on?
instances?
Let me see. Hold on. Oh, what happened? Did I spin it down? Oh, you know what I did? No, it is because I named the load balancer the same thing.
Oh, so it's okay.
Yeah, it's recreating the load balancer.
No.
Yeah. Okay.
Oh, it finished creating it as well.
Adding instances to load. Yeah, so it's because the load balancer was already created.
Ah, okay.
So here, let's try it.
It's the same link, right? Yeah.
Yeah, here. Bad gateway.
Probably it's not yet complete. Adding instances.
Yeah, because so what that means is that the load balancer is created because we're not just getting a not found 404 arrow. We're getting that it's not pointing to the right target group. So yeah, let's wait until it's done adding the instances to the load balancer and then test. Yeah, because I think what happened is because I'm creating the new target group, it kind of screwed everything up.
Yeah, it's adding all the 12 one by one.
Yeah. Let's double check that. Let's see. Okay, let's see now. Yep, so now it's working for me at least.
Yeah, it works for me as well.
Okay, yeah, it happened because I didn't rename the stuff.
It's fine.
Okay, and that works. And you can actually, let's see. I know there's a way, I don't think I set up, oh, I did set up monitoring. Okay, so yeah, you can see the request coming in on the load balancer.
Mm.
And yeah, you can check. So this is, yeah, the response time, the requests, which I think this is probably just the initial health check that went out because it's about 15.
How do you know how many instances are being used in the load balance at a particular time? Is there a
So there
way?
is, so what you do is you see, I think you see what target group. Yeah, so forwarding to explain target group. And then when you check the target group, you go to targets. Yeah, and it lets you know all of them. So there's one unhealthy target.
Yeah, because
so that might be, yeah. So, request timed out.
That's probably me. I tried the second, third time generating explanations and changing the, yeah, I don't know why that happens.
Okay, here, but we can check. Yeah, so out of those, we do have a few unhealthy, but this is also where the auto scaling group that you can set on a target group would come up. So if anything was unhealthy, it would just destroy, terminate that instance and spin up another one.
Okay.
Yeah, it looks like as it's getting requests, it's knocking them down. Yeah, which we might need to look at, Glenn. But
yeah.
But yeah, that seems to be working at least where, like, let's see, even if, let's see, oh, it's on handle data. Let's just go back and make sure it's still working. Oh, I'm getting a bad gateway. Okay, there we go. Yeah, we might need to look into that, but that is the basics of how to spin up instances behind a load balancer with a script. And yeah, I provided you all with that script. And what else I did was I added a script to destroy everything, which if you just run it, it's in the little demo page. It will destroy your load balancer, your target group, and then all of the instances, which we can see here once. let's see, is it? Yep, so now it's shutting down all of the instances just with one click, which is nice. So yeah, you can test things and just destroy everything. And we can go back to load balancer, which is not there because we destroyed it, and target groups.
I had one other question. I think this is the last question. So you said 30 gigs of disk space for each instance. And when you said the swap memory, it goes into the disk space, right?
It does, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. And that's
kind of like an extension of RAM, right?
Yeah, it doesn't really, like, it's not like adding a whole nother gigabyte of RAM. Like if you put one, it's what it does is it moves like hardly used processes to the disk space, like things that don't need to be rapidly accessed. It will move that to the disk. So it's not like adding a whole nother processor, but it does make your processor running a little bit more efficient.
Okay.
But like if you wanted to, you could run that command with, you know, instead of T2 micro, you could look up T2 small or T2 medium, which is I think 2 and 4 CPUs, which doesn't get into the free. But if you're only running it for, you know, the 10 minutes you need, because this script quickly spin it up, you know, make sure it runs and then spin it down. Yeah. Which would be like, even like you probably have the $100 credit. That would be a couple cents maybe.
Right. I don't know why I can't see the credits anywhere. I need to figure that out.
So if you go into billing, billing on this account, I don't think I have many credits left, but credits, here we go. On the left side, about halfway down under billing, there's credits. Yeah, I have $5 left in my account.
Check. Where does it show?
Billing, and then on, so if you go to billing.
Oh, got it, credits.
It's on the left side under credits.
I have no credits. It doesn't show me any credits.
So if you don't, you might have to sign up for that AWS Educate that I linked to Sarush, because that's how I got the credits.
Oh, okay.
That was a while ago. Yeah, I think you keep the credits for 2 years. Yeah, because when you sign up, Sarush, I don't know, did you get a promotion code?
No, I didn't get.
Okay. Oh, you get $200 credits.
200. Oh man, when I did it, it was only 1. Yeah, because I did it 2 years ago, and it only gave me $100 worth of credit. That's nice. Yeah, and that it should give you a code either emailed to you or when you do it. Oh, thanks, Glenn. Yeah, and then you put it under, so on your credits you redeem the credit, and then you should be able to put the code in there, which gives you everything.
Tim, can you confirm if that's the link which I sent you? Just to make sure, because before I sign up, this is it's supposed to look like.
Yes, I believe that is.
Okay.
Yes, that's, yeah.
All right.
Cool. And yeah, if you do mess around with stuff, just make sure you destroy your resources. So you don't, like, it is nice to have the credit, but yeah, if especially if you're messing with GPUs and stuff, those can add up. So yeah, just always delete your resources. And that's how I'll end it. I'm ending the recording now, but I'll stay on.